Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to a series of videos in which I am reading you a book. We are reading the Gospel according to St. Mark from the King James Bible, and we are right near the end. We are approaching one of the pinnacles of the action that has been building for a long time. This preacher character, we're trying to read this as a book, not as the product of a lifetime of religious indoctrination, but rather as a text. And we're not doing it very deeply. This is not any kind of historical analysis or exegesis. We're just reading what's in front of us. I think it's helpful and worthwhile to do that, especially with a non-judgmental fellow reader. We are following the story of a preacher and a miracle worker named Jesus, who has been out and about in the hinterlands of Nazareth, raising the dead, healing the sick, curing lepers, and drawing crowds of thousands of people that he feeds miraculously. This has naturally drawn the attention of the religious powers in Jerusalem, who sent out their chief priests and their scribes and their Pharisees to question Jesus, to trip him up. And when they see that they can't easily do that, and also that he holds them in no reverence, they immediately start plotting to destroy him. I mentioned earlier on in the chapters where that first comes up that that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would Jesus allow that? Why wouldn't he change their hearts? Why is it that they are destined to hate him, seemingly, when everyone else who hears him is not? There is a reason for that. There is a textual, rhetorical reason for that. It doesn't take you too long to realize what it is. It must be that whoever wrote this gospel wants you to hate the chief priests and Pharisees of the temple. They are being intentionally made into the bad guys. But Jesus has delivered himself into their hands. He has gone to Jerusalem and into the great temple. He is in their center of power, and they have arrested him. And he has prophesied many times what they are going to do to him. He has left his disciples with no doubt about how this is going to come out. But the reader still has to see it. You want to get down there, baby? So this is chapter 15. And straightway in the morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council, and bound Jesus and carried him away and delivered him to Pilate. First time we've heard of this. This is Pontius Pilate, who was the governor of the prefect of the Roman province of Judea. Keep in mind, these people aren't free. They are occupied by Roman soldiers. This is a Roman territory. And Pilate was prefect of Judea for over a decade, 11 years, I think. And he has the ultimate authority here. It's not like the Jewish authorities can go doing whatever they want with Roman soldiers up on the walls. So they bring him to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Art thou the king of the Jews?" Naturally, this would be the opening question that a Roman prefect would ask, because that's treason. And he, answering him, said unto him, "Thou sayest it." So all Jesus is saying is, that's what you've said. You've said it. And the chief priest accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. And Pilate asked him again, saying, "Answerest thou nothing? Behold how many things they witness against thee." But Jesus yet answered nothing, so that Pilate marveled, probably because he's used to people who are brought before him talking a blue streak about how they're innocent and misunderstood. Now at that feast he released unto them one prisoner, whomsoever they desired, them being the crowd, not the priests. And there was one named Barabbas, which lay bound with them that had made insurrection with him, who had committed murder in the insurrection. And the multitude, crying aloud, began to desire him to do as he had ever done unto them. But Pilate answered them, saying, Will ye that I release unto you the king of the Jews? For he knew that the chief priests had delivered him for envy. Crucial detail from Mark. Pilate is not a fool. He knows he's being used. But the chief priests moved the people that he should rather release Barabbas unto them. And Pilate answered and said again unto them, "What will ye that I shall do unto him whom you call the King of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Crucify him." Then Pilate said unto them, "Why? What evil hath he done?" And they cried out again more exceedingly, "Crucify him." And so Pilate, willing to content the people, released Barabbas unto them and delivered Jesus, when he had scourged him, to be crucified. Scourging is bad enough. I will not describe the details of it to you, but it's horrifying. And it's nothing compared to a death by crucifixion. It is one of the worst deaths that humans have devised, and humans have been busy devising horrifying means of death since the whole time they've been a species. And the soldiers led him away into the hall called the Praetorium, and they called together the whole band. And they clothed him with purple, and plaited a crown of thorns, and put it about his head, and began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews." And they smote him on the head with a reed, and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees worshipped him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him, put on his own clothes, and led him out to crucify him. So we have more mockery. That's a note that Jesus struck with his disciples many times when they were still safe in the countryside. He said, it's not just that I'll be killed, I'll also be spat upon and mocked. And they compel one Simon, a Cyrenian, who passed by, coming out of the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear his cross. And they bring him unto the place Golgotha, which is being interpreted the place of a skull. And they gave him a drink of wine mixed with myrrh, but he received it not. And they gave him, and when they had crucified him, they parted his garments, casting lots upon them what every man should take, because he's crucified naked. And it was the third hour, and they crucified him. And the superscription of his accusation was written over, the King of the Jews. And with him they crucified two thieves, one on his right hand and the other on his left. And the scripture was fulfilled, which saith, and he was numbered with the transgressors. And they that passed by railed on him, wagging their heads, saying, thou hast destroyed the temple, and buildeth in 3 days. Save thyself, and come down from the cross. So they're remembering something. They're remembering comments that Jesus has made. Likewise also the chief priests, mocking, said unto themselves with the scribes, he saved others, himself he cannot save. Let Christ, the King of Israel, descend now from the cross, that we may see and believe. The interpretive gloss, the gymnastics that you have to go through here in a passage like this, is to assume that if Jesus did that, they still would not believe. Because I don't believe that. I think if he did, then they would believe. Everyone would believe. There wouldn't be anyone but Christians in the world out of this gospel. He doesn't do that. Instead, it's almost like there is an oral tradition stemming from a series of real-life events that cannot say that he did come down from the cross. There's a physical act here, a physical reality that has to be written. Maybe because there are people alive who remember it. And they that were crucified with him reviled him. So some of you know this story already. You're going to know that is different in other Gospels. And when the 6th hour was come, there was darkness over the whole land unto the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which is being interpreted, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And some of them that stood by, when they heard it, said, Behold, he calleth Elias. And one ran to fill, he's actually quoting Elijah, and one ran and filled a sponge with vinegar and put it on a reed to give him to drink, saying, Let alone, let us see whether Elias will come to take him down. And Jesus cried with a loud voice and gave up the ghost. And the veil of the temple was rent in twain from top to the bottom. And when the centurion which stood over against him saw that he had so cried out and gave up the ghost, he said, Truly this man was the Son of God. There were also women looking on afar off, among whom was Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of James the Less and of Joses and Salome, who also, when he was in Galilee, followed him and ministered unto him, and many other women which came up with him into Jerusalem. And now when the even was come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, an honorable consular, which also awaited for the kingdom of God, came and went in boldly unto Pilate, and craved the body of Jesus. And Pilate marveled if he were already dead. And calling unto him the centurion, he asked whether he had been any while dead. And when he knew it of the centurion, he gave the body to Joseph. And he brought fine linen, and took him down, and wrapped him in the linen, and laid him in the sepulchre which was hewn out of rock, and rolled a stone unto the door of the sepulchre. And Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joseph beheld where he was laid. And that's the end of this chapter. There's a note there that's passed over here. It's done very briefly. If you don't know anything about crucifixion, you might wonder at it. You might also wonder what would prompt that centurion to say that he'd seen something remarkable, something miraculous. And that's the fact that Jesus dies right away. He's nailed to the crossbeam of his cross, and he dies within hours. And that's why Pilate is marveling when he gets news from Joseph of Arimathea that Jesus is already dead. So he so marvels at it that he has to get confirmation from someone else. Hey, go and make sure this is true, because crucifixion would last for days. You would be dying for days, sometimes longer than that. And that doesn't happen here. So even the end of this life is a little bit on the remarkable side. And that brings us to the final chapter in Mark. So we will read the final chapter next time and see what we make of it. And then maybe a pause. Maybe we read something else and we have a pause and then we'll move on. But we'll deal with that in good time. So I will see you next time for the end of the Gospel according to St. Mark. Thank you, BookTube.